And on to the top story this hour, Sri Lanka's President Anura Dissanayake will begin his India tour today, marking his first overseas visit after assuming office. President Dissanayake will be accompanied by Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Vijitha Herath and Deputy Minister of Finance Dr. Harshana Surya Pebenuma. During the three-day visit, President Dissanayake will meet his Indian counterpart Droupadi Murmu and hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday, while External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar will call on the visiting dignitary on Sunday evening. And in India's Amritpal Singh joins us live for more on this. Well, Amrit, this is Sri Lankan President's first overseas visit after he took office. How would you describe the priorities of either side for the visit?
That's right, Lipakshi. This is the first visit of Anura Dissanayake after he became the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, the President of Sri Lanka after, in September this year, though he had visited India in February last year as the leader of his own party. This is a very important visit because this is his first overseas visit. It is being looked at very closely that when a Sri Lankan president visits either New Delhi or Beijing. So in that context, it is a very, very important visit, though it's a bilateral visit in that nature, from trade to bilateral ties to maritime security, to the issue of fishermen, to Indian investments, to reviewing, sharing the IMF bailout package that Sri Lanka has signed with the IMF. All that would be under discussion, and building of infrastructure in that country, and India's line of credits and loans given to Sri Lanka, our various cooperation in terms of maritime security and also helping the defense forces would be reviewed. And, the political relationship would also be reviewed when he meets Prime Minister Modi tomorrow at the Hyderabad House in Delhi. Vipakshi.
Right, Amrit. Also, considering the history of Dissanayake's party and stances on very specific issues, how do you think both sides will navigate their ties from this visit onwards?
Now, that's a good question. He comes from a party called the JVP, which is a part of the NPP alliance. They won 2/3 majority in the parliament. He, of course, won as president in September, later in November. Now, they are a strong political force. Traditionally, the JVP's stance has been anti-India. But remember, when External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar had visited Sri Lanka in October, Dissanayake had very clearly said that he will not allow the Sri Lankan soil to be used for interests that are inimical to Indian security interests. So clearly, there is a change of stance. He needs the money. He understands that India is an important partner of Sri Lanka. India is its closest maritime neighbor, is an economic hub, given his country's finances and also strategic interests. He needs India. Of course, he'll be visiting China later. He has a relationship with Beijing. They are the biggest contributors in terms of lenders to Sri Lanka. But, after China and Japan, India is the third biggest lender and the closest to a maritime neighbor. So India, in the time of crisis, will be their first responder. So Mr. Dissanayake understands that very well. Of course, these issues will come up for discussion, provincial autonomy, etc. Or the power project of Gautam Adani, which he was opposed to during his campaign for presidency. So clearly, there are contentious issues, but there are similarities also. So I think the focus would be to build on the convergences and see how the divergences can be narrowed. Vipakshi?
Definitely. Sri Lanka needs India. But Amrit, as you said a little while back, issues relating to maritime security cooperation are also likely to figure in talks during Dissanayake's visit. What can be expected out there?
Well, India has a robust defense relationship with them, especially in the maritime area. They are the nearest or the closest neighbor of India in the Indian Ocean region. So from the Indian point of view, they play a very central role in the Sagar vision of the Prime Minister. They are important. You have cultural, historical ties with them. You have, the Tamils living there in the north and the eastern provinces of Sri Lanka, in majority and in minority in other parts of Sri Lanka as well. So you have, ties, very close ties with them. Therefore, the cooperation in maritime sphere to see that this area remains a free, open, inclusive area, and interests which are inimical to Indian interests. Say the docking of the Chinese satellite tracker ships, etc., at the Sri Lankan ports remains a matter of concern. So both the countries would want to see that those differences are smoothened and their security interests coincide. India has been providing indigenously built offshore patrolling vehicles to the Sri Lankan Navy. So cooperation in that. Then the fishermen issue, that how the two sides can come closer in the maritime domain and see that each other's fishermen are not arrested by the other party. So these would be the focus of the ties of the talks tomorrow. Epakshi.
Right, Amrit. Also, Sri Lankan president is scheduled to attend a business event in Delhi to promote investment and commercial linkages between both the countries. What's your any information on that?
Yes, he's he's leading. Of course, his deputy economy minister is there. So he's essentially, because they need investments at this moment. They need to badly get their economy back on track. India's growing business sector, India's production capabilities do help Sri Lanka. So he'll be looking at exploring these linkages in that meeting with the top business leaders or the honchos of India, where they'll be looking at how they can cooperate and look at more investments from Indian private sector into Sri Lanka for a mutually beneficial relationship. From his point of view, more money, more investment flowing in. One, to create infrastructure there. Second, to create jobs in Sri Lanka. Lipakshi.
Also, Amrit, he's scheduled to visit Bodh Gaya. What connect do you see there?
Oh, there is a Buddhist connect, as we know, between Sri Lanka and India for a very, very long time. When it's steep in history, Buddhism traveled to Sri Lanka from India. So Bodh Gaya being the so-called Makkah of the Buddhists.
Right.
He himself, being a Buddhist, would want to pay obeisance at Bodh Gaya. So he's visiting Bodh Gaya. That forms a very, very important linkage in terms of cultural ties between the two countries.
Right, Amrit. Thank you so much for all those details.